Dear friends, English Literature Introduction to Drama as You Like It by William Shakespeare. Brief questions with answers. Question 56 to 96. Question 56. What does a villainous contriver mean? Answer. A villainous contriver means a wicked plotter. Question 57. What does Oliver warn Charles against Orlando? Answer. Oliver warned Charles that if he underestimated Orlando in the wrestling match, it would prove murderous for him. Question 58. How far is Oliver correct about his warning? Answer. Oliver is partially correct about his warning to Charles against Orlando because Orlando was powerful, strong, and resolute. He has the strength to win the bout of wrestling, whether it was Charles or anyone else. Question 59. Now will I steer the gamester who speaks the line? Whom does the speaker refer to as the gamester? Answer. Oliver speaks the line in a soliloquy. He refers to Orlando as the gamester. Question 60. Why does Oliver wish to see an end of Orlando? Answer. Oliver is jealous of Orlando's mobility and generosity, for which he is more popular and is loved by the people. His good qualities are a threat to Oliver, so he wishes to see an end of Orlando's life. Question 61. What good qualities of Orlando does Oliver refer to in his soliloquy in which he wishes to see an end of his life? Answer. The soliloquy in which Oliver wishes to see an end of Orlando's life he refers to as learned, gentle, noble, and very popular among his people. Question 62. What does Charles promise about the wrestling bout which was to take place before the new Duke Frederick? Answer. Being persuaded by Oliver to King Orlando, Charles promised that after the bout, Orlando would not be able to walk without help, and if such was not, Charles would give up his profession. Question 63. I pray thee, Rosalind, suit my cause. Be merry. Why is Rosalind sad? Answer. Rosalind is sad because her father, Duke Senior, has been banished to the forest of Arden by the usurping Duke Frederick. She is unable to cope up with the injustice done to her father. Question 64. If my uncle, thy banished father, had banished thy uncle, the Duke, my father, so thou hast been still with me, who is the banished father and the uncle? Answer. Duke Senior, Rosalind's father, is the banished father spoken of here, and Duke Frederick, Celia's father, is the uncle who has been mentioned here. Question 65. I pray thee, Rosalind, suit my cause, be merry. How does Celia try to cheer up Rosalind, or what does Celia promise to do for the person addressed to? Answer. Celia tries to cheer up Rosalind, saying that when Celia would inherit the kingdom from the usurping Duke, she would return it to Rosalind, the rightful heir. Question 66. When I break that oath, let me turn monster. What oath is referred to here? Answer. The oath refers to Celia's promise of returning Rosalind's kingdom to her after the death of Duke Frederick. Celia says that if he does not fulfill the promise to return the kingdom, she would turn into a monster. Question 67. What sports does Rosalind plan to be merry? Answer. Rosalind plans to play the game of falling in love as a pastime to be merry. Question 68. What does Celia think about the game of falling in love? Answer. Celia hesitates to play the game of falling in love. She advises Rosalind not to be serious about it, or it will lead to shame and humiliation. Question 69. What sport does Celia propose to indulge in instead of playing the game of falling in love? Answer. Celia proposes to indulge in making fun of the goddess of fortune, who does not distribute her bounties fairly. Question 70. What does Rosalind say about the goddesses of nature and fortune? Answer. Rosalind said that fortune played her part in the distribution of bounties like wealth and fame, whereas nature awarded natural qualities like beauty and virtue. Question 71. What does Celia say about the goddesses of nature and fortune? Answer. Celia said that fortune could make a beautiful person fall into fire and lose her beauty. It is nature who gave them the wit to make fun of the goddesses. Question 72. Why does Celia think that the goddess of fortune should be driven out from her wills? Answer. Celia thinks that the goddess of fortune should be driven out from her will because she does not distribute her bounties equally. Question 73. What does Celia mean by saying, for always this dullness of the fool is the whetstone of the wits? Answer. When Celia and Rosalind are mocking the goddesses of nature and fortune, Touchstone the professional fool enters. Here Celia means that nature and fortune has sent Touchstone so that his stupidity can act as a grindstone to sharpen their wits. Question 74. Bonjour, Monsieur Livo. What is the news? What news does Livo bring forth? Answer. Livo brought the news of a wrestling match in which Charles, the professional court wrestler, had broken the ribs of 3 sons of an old man. Question 75. What does Livo mean by saying the bit is yet to do? Answer. Livo says this to Rosalind and Celia. He tells them that the wrestling match in which the 3 sons of an old man were killed by Charles was the beginning of the match, but the best match is yet to come, which will be held soon, and they can watch it. Question 76. Which adjectives are used by Livo to describe the 3 young men who were killed by Charles in a wrestling match? Answer. Charles describes them as 3 proper young men, excellent, good, and presence. Question 77. Come on, since the youth will not be entreated at his own peril on his forwardness. Who is the speaker? Who is the youth spoken about? Duke Frederick is the speaker. The youth refers to Orlando. Question 78. Why was Duke Frederick concerned about Orlando? Answer. A wrestling bout is going to take place between Charles and Orlando. The Duke is aware that Orlando is not an equal to the skills of Charles, who is a professional wrestler. For this reason, Duke Frederick is concerned about Orlando. Question 79. Who asks whom to dissort the youth to refrain from the bout? Answer. Duke Frederick asks Celia and Rosalind to speak to the youth and dissort the youth to refrain from the bout. Question 80. Why do Rosalind and Celia try to dissort Orlando from wrestling? Answer. On being asked by Duke Frederick, Rosalind and Celia try to dissort Orlando from wrestling. Question 81. Why did Orlando accept the challenge of Charles? Answer. Orlando accepts the challenge of Charles to test his youthful strength against him. Question 82. How does Orlando react to Rosalind and Celia when they try to dissort him from the match? Answer. When Rosalind and Celia try to dissort him from the match, he tells them with due respect about his firm determination to fight the challenge. He also informs them that if he dies, there is none to lament his death, and that his death would be no loss, as he would be replaced by a more worthy individual. Question 83. The title Strength That I Have, I Would It Were With You. Who is the speaker? What does the line suggest? Answer. Rosalind says that to Orlando when he is going to fight with Charles. This line suggests that Orlando has already occupied a place in the heart of Rosalind. Question 84. Hercules, be thy speed. who says this and when? Answer. Rosalind says this when Orlando is fighting with Charles. Question 85. What happens in the match between Charles and Orlando? Answer. In the match, Charles is overthrown in a trice and carried away out of breath. Question 86. Why is Duke Frederick displeased when Orlando identifies himself? Answer. When Duke Frederick identifies Orlando as the son of Sir Roland de Boys, he is displeased because he always considered him to be his enemy. The Duke tells him that Orlando's victory would please him if he were a son of another man. Question 87. I'll ask him what he would. Did you call, sir? Sir, you have wrestled well and overthrown more than your enemies. Who is Rosalind speaking about? Answer. Here Rosalind is speaking about Orlando. Question 88. What does Rosalind mean by saying, my pride fell with my fortunes? Answer. Rosalind means that he parted with all her dignity when misfortunes overtook her. Question 89. I will ask him when he would. Did you call, sir? Why did Rosalind feel that he had called? Answer. Rosalind had fallen in love with Orlando and she felt that he had called. Question 19. What does Rosalind give Orlando and why? Answer. Rosalind gives Orlando a chain from her neck as a gift for his victory against the professional wrestler Charles. Question 91. What does Rosalind tell Orlando when she gives him a chain? Answer. When Rosalind gives Orlando a chain, she said that she had been a victim of misfortune, so she could not give something more valuable to Orlando. Question 92. What does Quentin mean? Answer. Quentin is a dummy wooden figure which horse riders use to practice diddling. Sorry, I repeat it. Quentin is a dummy wooden figure which horse riders use to practice tilting. Question 93. Why does Orlando compare himself to a Quentin? Answer. Orlando has fallen in love with Rosalind and he is tongue-tied with the emotion. He cannot speak when Rosalind regards him as a chain for his victory against Charles. He stands like a dummy or a Quentin before her, not knowing what to say. Question 94. What does Levo advise Orlando to leave the place? Answer. Levo advises Orlando to leave the place immediately, for the Duke is in ill temper with him. Question 95. Why does Orlando thank Levo? Answer. As Levo informs him of the Duke's ill temper with him, Orlando thanks him. Question 96. Which of the two was a daughter of the Duke that here was at the wrestling? Which Duke is being referred to here by Orlando? Duke Frederick the usurper has been referred to here by Orlando. Thank you friends for watching my video.